Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. As always, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. So, I spoke to James today. Now, if God spoke to you and told you to write a book, how do you think that would make you feel? And what would you do? James is going to tell you what he did. Hello, James. Welcome to the David Watson podcast. Thank you very much for coming on. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. And as I said in the intro, I'm incredibly excited because in 145 episodes, I've never had an opportunity to talk to somebody about aliens, conspiracies, and it's actually one of my favourite subjects. And I don't deliberately steer clear of it or anything like that. I just never seem to have come across a guest that wants to talk about it. So where does it start for you? Like when, because I know you've got some books and stuff that I want to get into and talk about, but where does it start?
Well, for me, writing started well over 20 years ago when I was still working. I worked work as civil service for the government here in the United States, and it sort of just came to me in a dream. It just told me the vision said, "I want you to write a book." And actually, I thought it was just a dream, but it wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
So when I started thinking about it, and it kept coming back to me, I thought, well, what do I write about? What would I write about? And I started thinking, well, I like action adventure uh, movies, so that's what I'll write about. I'll write an action adventure book. So I started off, and I wrote 3 books at that time, and I thought it was just basically to get me through a period of just getting through a period of life where I was thinking about changing jobs and things like that. Um, because when I was writing the books, that's all I was thinking about was writing the books and not changing jobs or anything like that. And next thing I know, I got the promotion that I had been wanting to get. So I felt like it was God diverting me from moving away from the job that He had for me, and that's the one I retired from 30 years later. And I thought I was done writing books at that time because I thought, this is it. He just wanted me to write books to divert my attention. But in 2020, during the year of the pandemic, the voice came back to me, and the vision said, "I want you to write a book about alien abductions." And I thought, well, this has happened before, but this can't be God wanting me to write a book about alien abductions. And so I put it off for a while. It was nearly a year that it just sort of kept going through my mind, kept coming back to me. And I finally realized this is God wanting me to write again. And so then that's when I started thinking about, what do I write about? What do I write? And does God want me to really include alien abductions? Then when I started writing, I realized He wanted me to have a Christian theme in the book as well. So the book contains a lot. It's a dichotomy between two scientists who marry, and they're brilliant Yale University scientists who are offered a top secret job by the CIA in an underground facility in New Mexico to develop a mind control program. At the same time, she's a devout Christian and he's agnostic. So that dichotomy works itself throughout the book. And the mind control program is just basically a cover program for reverse engineering programs that are going on in that facility. So and then there's a spy from Russia and a spy from Colombia that are basically running the facility, but the United States, the CIA doesn't know that, and they have plans of their own for this facility. So, and then they wind up working against each other. So there's a lot. It takes a lot to talk about everything that's going on in the book, and
Yeah.
the the and the NSA doesn't know what's going on in the facility, but well, let me back up and say one group of aliens of extraterrestrials that want to find out what's going on in the facility, that's when they abduct the two scientists and plant a spy chip in one of them so that they can keep up and find out what's going on in the facility. Because there are several groups of aliens. There's like 6 groups of aliens, and this is the group that was left out of working with the CIA in that facility, doing reverse engineering on futuristic weapons and other types of devices and things like that. So I'm trying not to give away too
No,
much,
of course.
but the CIA, the NSA, they know about the facility, and they contact the two scientists to tell them that they want to find out what's going on in there, because when the president of the United States finds out about the facility and what's going on, he may want it to be destroyed. So it just sort of goes from there. It's just a lot in the book.
So, interestingly, you mentioned about these dreams, and you say that this is a dream where God is communicating to you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first one you said you had?
The first one?
Yeah.
The first one was, as I said, this was back in the 90s. I was, God has a plan for all of us. And I didn't know that He had put in me the ability to write, or the talent to write. And but he also has a plan, as it says in Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plan I have for you, and that's for everybody. And the plan that He had for me was that job that I was basically trying to get away from.
Yeah.
So when I was contemplating about it and thinking about, well, I'm not getting what I want. I think I sort of applying in other places. And I was laying on my bed one day thinking about it, and this voice just out of nowhere said, "Write a book." I mean, I was sort of dozing off, and when the words come to me, "Write a book," I mean, my eyes opened, and I said, "What? Where did that come from?" I looked around. I was the only one in the house at the time, and I said, "Where did that come from to write a book?" I said, I don't read that much, so I certainly am not that much into writing, but it wouldn't go away. It wouldn't go away. And I said, well, I think I'm supposed to write a book, and this must be God talking to me. So when I started writing and I thought about what I would write, I just got into that, and I just stopped putting in applications for other places and interviews and things like that, because I was so into getting this book done that it just took my mind off of that. And next thing I know, after I wrote that one, I said, well, maybe God wants me to, maybe that's the job He wants. He wants me to be a novelist. So I wrote another one, and then I wrote. Before I knew it, I had wrote 3 novels back then, fiction adventure novels. And next thing I know, the promotion came open for me. And I said, okay, this is God's way of diverting my attention, because He had this job. He had this. It's the job I really wanted. It's the job I loved, and the one that I retired from 31 years later. And I said, okay, that was God's plan. Now, when I retired in 2018, I said, okay, I'm what I'm going to do in retirement. Of course, I'm going to be involved in my church. I'm going to golf, because I'm an avid golfer. That's my first love. And travel. I had no plans to write again. Absolutely no plans to write again. I tell people, if you want proof that there's a God, you just should know how determined I was not to write again. That was part of my life back then. That was God getting me through a little patch of a little rough spot in my life, and I know why He did it. I understand that. I understand His plan. But in 2020, during the pandemic, this voice, this vision came back when I was laying in bed and said, I want you to write a book about alien abductions. And I thought, this can't be God this time, because why would He want me to write a book about alien abductions? But after I started writing the book, after about a year of just putting it off, but the voice, and I was telling my friends, my golfing buddies, and my wife, I said, I keep getting this vision, and this vision that I'm supposed to write a book about alien abductions. They're my witnesses that But for a year, I said, I keep getting this vision. It won't go away. So when I finally decided to write it, and putting the thoughts together, I said, maybe God wants me, this is God, maybe he wants me to put a message in this book. So it all came together in my mind that, okay, he wants me to write a book, because I kept wondering, why does he want me to write this type of book? And I said, okay, I finally get it. He wants me to write a book that appeals to a wider range of readers than just read Christian books. He has a Christian message in the book, but he wants to reach more people than would read just your regular religious and Christian books. So that's why he had me to write an action adventure book. The book has I have it went up to, I think, number 60. It may have been went higher than that. That was what my publishers, last time I heard from them on the ranking. But it went up into the top 100 of Amazon's category of science fiction science fiction novels by African American novelists. So I'm still pushing the book. I feel like it's a really, really good book that anybody that likes action adventure books will enjoy. So that's sort of I guess you asked about the religious nature of it. It's funny that I thought, okay, I get it, God. You wanted me to write this book, and now you want me to go back and publish the others. So now I'm going to work on publishing those three. But while I was in the publishing process of getting this book published, he said, I want you to write another book. This time I want you to write a book about the inner city, the people that live in the inner city coming together with the people that live in the gated communities, the rich areas of town. There's make an event, write about an event that happens that sort of gets some of those people working together. So I put a book together. That's the name of it is Uptown Ghetto, and I wrote that book last year. And since then, I, like I said, this is God. I said, okay, I can write. I see what I can write. I can write. I can write fiction, action, adventure novels. That's all I can write. I joined the book club, and this one of my members in the book club, she writes children's books, and another one she writes westerns, historic westerns. And I said, okay, that's their genre. I'm into action adventure. And just when I was getting done with Uptown Ghetto, which is set in Cleveland, Ohio, um, he said, I want you to write a book about going back to World War II. In this book, I want you to write about Hitler having a secret underground facility in Germany, and an American and British, the Rangers were just coming into they were just developing the Ranger unit in the UK and in America at the time. He said, I want you to have a special Ranger unit of British and American soldiers that would be assigned to paratroop behind the enemy lines and find that facility and destroy it. And he said, I want you to have the President Roosevelt, to assign two African Americans to that unit. So I started that book. And the name of that book is American Überleben. Überleben in German means survival.
Okay.
So I started that book. And so right now I have, that's my eighth book. That would be book number 8. And I thought, okay, I got to write. He wants me to write historic fiction now. Um, and I thought that was it. Christmas Day of last year of 2023. I was up Christmas morning looking at the presents, and this voice came to me again and said, I want you to write children's books. And I said, children's books? I said, okay, by now I knew this was God talking to me. So I started a line of children's books that should, by October, I should have the first one. It's called The Adventures of Dooley Dooley, he's a little young uh, black child in this made up city, made up town called Diddle, and he has an accident and he develops this power, and he's going to have the power to read people's minds. So the book is going to be about how he reads people's negative thoughts. He's only going to be able to read negative thoughts, and
He'll be a
how he
busy
uses
chap.
that to help people. What's that?
If he can only read negative thoughts, he'll be a busy chap.
Yeah, that'll keep him busy enough. So I've actually written 6 of those books already, and the first one they're doing the illustrations for it, and we should have that one ready. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, my writing, my writing career. And I tell people it's God, because I didn't want to write anymore. I really did not want to write anymore. And now I'm writing action adventure, historic novels, and children's books. So, my website, jjsnovels.com, has a link to that gives you information about my future projects. I'm still pushing An American Abduction, because I feel like that's the book God wants me to get out there to bring the audience in. And they'll be just like the people who have already read my books, 25 or so friends and relatives. They're just anxious for the next one, So they like every book I've gotten. And I went back from the aliens in, because I don't really consider myself a science fiction writer. The rest of my books are really what I call true life crimes. My next one that I'm publishing after this one is called Bestseller, and it's about an American aging author who wants to write another bestseller before he retires, and he's going to meet with an FBI informant who went to work undercover who went undercover with the Ku Klux Klan to find out why a former FBI agent was murdered, or wound up dead, who was also doing undercover work with the KKK. But when he goes back to his hometown of East St. Louis, Illinois, from New York, to write that book, this FBI informant dies on the way to meet with him. And at the same time, the there's a guy that's running from the mafia that wants him to write a book about his adventures in the mafia, but he took some money when he left the mafia, so he wants this author to write a book about him, and have him killed off in the book, so the mafia will stop looking for him. So that's my second book. It's got two different types of activities going on in one book. So that's more of what I write about is things like that. And my other books are more of what I call real life crimes.
Yeah. So with the main book about alien abductions and stuff, did you do any research? Do you have any experience with it?
Um, I did some research, but I think most of it just sort of came to me because I don't think like I said, I didn't consider it a science fiction book. I actually considered it a Christian book. But and I just described the aliens basically from what you see or hear on those alien shows, like on the History Channel
Yeah.
and the Smithsonian Channel of people who've been abducted and their experiences and things like that. And and when they are when they are let back, when they are returned to their car from being abducted, they don't remember the experience, and has to go through regression hypnosis to recall the experience, to realize that they were abducted, and so that's part of the alien abduction. Part of it, the aliens want to know. There's in my book, I described there are 6 types of aliens that that are interacting on this planet, and the group that abducted the two scientists are one of the groups that was not allowed in the facility. So they're trying to find out what's going on in that underground facility that's adjacent to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. So the aliens are sort of, in my book, the aliens are sort of working against each other as opposed to all of them working together.
Yeah.
That's the perception that I kind of give in the book. That not all alien groups are each group in their own that have their own interests, as opposed to working with other alien or extraterrestrials.
So when kind of watching these programs and documentaries, and bearing in mind the emphasis of the dreams, where do you think? How much of it do you think is true? How much of it do you think is speculation? Did you get a sense that there probably is something out there more than just ourselves?
J.J. Hebert, who's the president of Mindster Media, he's the one that's the first publishing company that I went to start getting my book published. And he writes a review of the book, and he calls it and a lot of people call it a thought-provoking book. So the purpose of my book is to get you thinking, saying maybe this exists, or I wonder if this happened, or because in the book I explain where aliens come from, and where the devil comes from, and a lot of things that people can say, this might be real, this might be happening. So it's thought-provoking. A lot of it is. I won't say a lot of it is from me or my beliefs. I don't want to claim the book puts my beliefs out there. What I want to do is throw thoughts out there, and people say, I wonder, is that true? I wonder, is the government really doing that? I wonder. So I see this could be where aliens come from. I see the connection between aliens, and I see the connection between Satan, and I see how Satan could have came about. And the book ties all of this together without me giving too much of it away. It's just thought. It's to me a very thought-provoking book. And Mary Hemingway, I don't know if you know about Mary Hemingway, the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway.
I don't know.
She does the foreword for the book, and she has a promo video on my website, and she really pushes that alien part of it. And she says, you might say something to the effect that next time you go outside, you may have a different thought, or you may think twice when you look up in the sky. So it's a bit of it's some of me, but it's more me throwing things out there. Yeah. I don't want my books to be so much me. It's like when I wrote Uptown Ghetto. Of course, it's the inner city. Some people from the inner city, or a main character from the inner city, that's coming together with a main character from the upper side of town. They meet for a common purpose, and they start discussing things about rap music, the types of music. Man, it's very socio-economic type of book, and they bandy things about how they look at life and politics and social programs and all of that. So I throw a lot of that out there because one has more of I guess a democratic look at things, and one has more of a Republican look at things. So I throw a lot of things out there, but it's not necessarily my views. It's just the views that are out there between political parties and such. So I don't think my books are me coming out. It's just me throwing things out to get people to think and talk and talk about.
Because it's a difficult thing to do, isn't it? Is to write a book where the point of the book is to help you think. So you can kind of read what you read, but there's a point where you understand where you have to make your own mind up as to what's happening.
Well, I believe in aliens. I believe there's other life out there. That's my belief. But I throw so much more in the book and how they interact with man, and I throw things out there about Satan and God, that I don't want to attach it so much to my belief of how things came about. But if I guess if I probably if I didn't believe in aliens, I probably wouldn't have even written the book. But as far as the genesis of things, I don't want to give too much of that away. I just want people to
Yeah,
read
no,
it
of
and
course.
say, oh, okay, so this kind of makes sense. This makes sense to me. This could possibly be how things actually happen.
It's. I just want to go back to when you had the very first dream in the 90s, because you said it was a reoccurring dream.
Hmm.
Did the dream stop once you accepted you'd been asked to write the books, or did it carry on until you'd finished the book?
Well, it was the same as when it came back to me in 2020 to write again. It was basically a voice. I tell people that I've heard the voice of God, because
Mm.
I was laying in my bed, sort of half asleep, and this word just come up and said, write a book. I mean, I was thinking more about my job changing and things like that, and this voice just came, write a book, and I said, I mean, I just heard it, and I could call it a dream, but I actually heard it, because my eyes opened up, and I'm like, there's nobody else in the house but me. And I won't say it was a dream that kept coming back to me. It was that thought that I think I'm supposed to write a book. It kept coming back to my mind. I wasn't even trying to make it come back. It kept coming back to me that I think I'm supposed to write a book. I'm supposed to write a book. And maybe for a couple of weeks, it finally hit me that I'm going to write a book. And then that's when I started thinking about um, what it was going to be about.
Mm.
What would best suit me? What could I write about that I felt like I could make a story from? And yeah, that's when the thought and the dream went away, because I finally I accepted that
So,
command.
so something coming.
Just like before, when I kept fighting against writing a book about alien abductions for almost a year, it kept coming back to me.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't leave, and not so much a dream, but I would be trying to think, or I'd be wide awake, and it would just come back in my head, and I'm like, okay, this is God speaking to me again. It just won't go away. I was telling my friends and my relatives and my wife that I just keep getting this thought that I'm supposed to write a book about alien abduction.
Yeah.
And then when I started putting pen to paper, that's when it went away. That's when it didn't come back, because I had started the process.
So, because I'm genuinely fascinated with is, and I'm making an assumption here, but I'm assuming you were kind of raised as a Christian, the church, Jesus, the God, the Bible. It's a significant and integral part of your life. So
Mhm.
I, and what I'm, how do I? Give me a second while I think about how to articulate this correctly. That
Well, let me say, while you're thinking, in the book, I do make, even though there's espionage, there's of course uh, criminal activity, there's killing and all of that. Uh, the dichotomy between the two scientists, a married couple that love each other, that dichotomy goes throughout the book of but they're both strong-willed. She wants to convince him that there is a God, and he's going to convince her that I'm not sure about all that stuff. So, one of them wins out in the end. I won't reveal that, but that is a
yeah,
big part of the book.
but to hear, so bearing in mind the background and history of your upbringing, how important faith is, that there's a bridge that has to be crossed where you accept that God has spoken to you. You know, it's no small thing to say, oh yeah, yeah, God just tapped me up and we had a quick conversation. I find generally in life the people that believe the most can be the hardest ones to convince that God would come to them, or that they'd hear something from Jesus or something from the Mother Mary. And so for you to accept that there would have to be something where, like you said, there's no one else in the room, and you hear a voice that you know it's not earthly, for want of a better term. It's not to do with there's no one else in the house. It's not to do with there's no one else in the room. There's something really deep inside of you that knows where the voice comes from, which also crosses that bridge where you accept it. And I'm trying to kind of get a picture or a greater understanding about the power and depth of that voice that just told you to write a book.
Yeah, not everybody actually hears from God. Not everybody hears God's voice. Even the most devout Christians and the greatest speakers and people that perform miracles and all of that, or miracles performed through them and all of that. So it was hard for me to accept, because I know that even pastors don't hear God's voice. They might have a dream or have a revelation, things like that. I don't think it was designed for everybody to hear from God, because we're supposed to go on faith. So it was hard for me to believe that He actually spoke to me.
Yeah.
And it took me some time, because I kept thinking, the logical or illogical side of it, saying, okay, maybe since I was thinking about changing so much, maybe one side of my brain said, just go write a book. I was trying to rationalize that it was me talking to myself, or me trying to in some way make sense of where I was at that time. Maybe you should go write a book instead of all of these other things you're thinking. Maybe trying to just calm myself down. So I was thinking more that it was maybe just me, maybe just a thought popped in my head, like thoughts pop in our head. And so it took me a few weeks to realize that I believe that was God talking to me, because I think the fact that it wouldn't go away,
Yeah,
was the convincing element. Just like in 2020, it just would not go away.
did that have
it was so.
Sorry, I just did that have a deeper impact on your faith moving forward in life?
I would say it had a deeper impact on the fact that God has a plan for all of us. My faith has already been deep my whole life. I was raised in the church, a Baptist church, and then moved over to non-denominational church. But I think my faith has always been strong. But the Bible has so much in it, and the part where God has a plan for you. He when I say He knows he knows every hair on your head. It just convinced me that every aspect of my life He wants to be in. In this aspect, He wants me to get it right. He planted a talent in me that I didn't know I had. For 40 something years, I didn't think of myself as a writer. I didn't grow up. I grew up thinking about, like a lot of people, I wanted to be an athlete, or then when I started in terms of job career, I thought about things like maybe a lawyer and things like that. I never thought about that He had put in me a talent to write, a talent to put stories together. Even when I wrote the books, especially when I wrote this one, and people read it, friends and relatives, they were like, how can you put all that together? I can't think like that. I can't, I can't. I said, well, you can play a guitar. I can't. You got something that you can do that I can't do. I bought one and tried to learn how to play it and never did. So this is what I can do. This is my talent. And it just, when you say increase my faith, I think what it did, or what it's doing, or what it's going to do, is help me help others.
Mm.
When one lady found out about my book, when I told her about my book, that it's going to be going to people who they're going to be excited about the action adventure part of it, the alien part of it, and all of that. I want to read about alien abduction, or I want to read about what the U.S. government is doing, or could be doing, and things like that. They're going to get a Christian message. And she said, this book is going to save some people. So I think it's more. And if you had read the book, you would understand more about what I'm saying.
It's just what it is I'm trying to kind of help other people who would be listening to this. Is there's a deeper message to the book than just what's written. There's a message where you can think you have a path. You can think that life isn't working out for you. You can think maybe you're not worthy. There's, or you can think you have no faith. God doesn't discriminate, and if maybe there's a saying that you have to get a little bit lost to find your way, and with that saying, it doesn't tell you where directions come from, and there's a point in your life where you were saying, you was a little bit lost. You knew you didn't want to be doing something, and a voice came, God came and gave you a direction. And the being able to have that faith, that to take that instruction, to listen to that direction, not question it, but to actually take action on it. It's almost prayer in action. It's I've been given an instruction, and I've listened, and I'm going to do God's work. The outcome, the context of the book, and I don't mean this provocatively, but it's almost irrelevant, because it's having the faith to take the step. Noah building the ark wasn't the big deal. The big deal was he had the faith to start the task and not question it. And that's the bit, like, respectfully, that I'm incredibly fascinated by, is having that faith to hear a voice and take action.
Well, one friend of mine who read the book and really enjoys it, he's read three more of my books as well. But when I started, and I asked him before I even started writing the book, I said, I want your prayers with me, and I told him I getting ready to write this book. And after he read it, he said, I'm glad you obeyed God's command. It was God's command. I was like everybody else. I was like, Moses didn't want. Moses had some backlash, some pushback from leading the Israelites, and Jonah ran away from preaching in Nineveh. So that was just that human reaction of not really wanting to do this, even though God spoke to them directly. Well, he spoke to me directly.
Yeah,
there's still that's
the point, though, isn't it? Because it's no different from the biblical stories.
Correct.
It's exactly the same context as Noah, as Moses, as Jonah. It's the same principle. It's the same act of faith to listen, to take action.
Yes, and now I realize, God doesn't give us everything at once. It's like my pastor, the church I belong to, he said God gave him a word, and the one word was dome. And he wondered for a while what that meant. He knew it was from God because he was a strong man of faith, but he didn't know what it meant until things started revealing itself later on that he wanted a specific church built he wanted him to build a specific church, and the church was going to be a dome cathedral, and that's what he, and $16 million later he said, and he said, I want you to build it debt free. He didn't know what it meant, and he didn't want to know, and he didn't know where he was going to get the money, but he built a nice dome mega church here in Birmingham, Alabama, and he built it $16 million, raised $16 million without having to go in debt for it. He followed God, he followed God's command. I believe. I tell people, I believe my books are going to be my ministry,
Yeah.
because whenever anybody like yourself asks me where did this come from, I'm gonna say God. This is all God. I'm giving the honor and glory to God. So whatever I achieve, God's gonna get the glory for it. So this is to me a ministry.
I had a friend quite a few years ago who once told me that you never feel alone if you can feel God in your heart, and I've definitely struggled with that over the years, and I've always been aware that if I feel disconnected or lonely, there's something I'm not feeling, and I'm happy to call that God, and I wonder when you're, like now that you're completely involved and committed to the work, and you've got more books and more work to do. When you are at church or when you're in those moments of prayer, do you feel yourself more connected?
I do feel more. I
Well, how would you describe it?
I do feel more connected because I think he wanted me more connected. I read my daily devotion of where I feel he's talking to me, saying you're going to get more of this when you get more of me. It's basically what I get through my daily devotion. So giving more to him, not just the honor, but having him in everything will make the other things work better. So if I have him in everything, then it makes everything else work out. So I feel more connected because my prayers are not been get down on my knees type of prayers. My
No.
prayers are just conversations.
Yeah.
My prayers are conversations. Like I'm talking to you now. That's the same way I talk to God. It's just basically my conversations. Um, and I tell people that I had back surgery back in April. It was my third back surgery. This time, I thought that, I was telling my buddies, I said, I may have to give up golf. God has put me in a direction of writing books now, and so God can see God, and at my age, He sees now. He's gave me something else to do, and instead He gave me another hobby instead of golf. I felt like that was God's plan. But I went ahead and scheduled a third surgery. I was really in pain. I was to the point where I was they tried the shots, and then after the shots, I was also taking the meloxicam and the oxycontin, and nothing was really hurt. Nothing was really helping me. So I scheduled a surgery for April. I got to the point where I was just going with my buddies and sitting on the golf cart. I wasn't playing because I wasn't able to swing. But I still prayed, and I still thank God, and I thank Him for giving me the golf life that I did have, and I felt like okay, maybe He's pointing me in another direction. And I told my buddies, I said, well, I still come and ride the cart and watch you guys play. But when I had the surgery, the pain is gone. And I tell people, I said, you can call it a miracle, and it probably was, but I have two really good proofs of you can't convince me there's no God when I was basically not gonna didn't think I was gonna play golf anymore and had a miracle surgery, and He's having me write books that I don't want to write, that I didn't plan to write, don't want to write. You can't tell me there's no God.
Yeah. No. So, what's obviously there's the intention to grow an audience and what is the message you would like to be able to for them to listen to? How do you want it to move forward so you can keep talking with God's message? What would that be?
Well, I'm not an ordained minister, so my godly message, my spiritual message would be kind of subtle. When you ask me right off the bat to talk about my books, I'm going to talk about my books. I'm going to talk about the content of the books. But I'm also going to give God the glory that He put me on this path. But my message is going to be more like if you want to talk about an American Abduction, I'm going to say action adventure readers are going to love this book. If you like action adventure, if you like stories about aliens and government conspiracies and espionage, international espionage, you will love this book.
Can I ask you?
It has Christian message in it.
Can I ask you another question then? And my apologies for cutting you off. I didn't mean to.
No.
I don't want to be rude. You don't need to be an ordained minister to talk about your faith. And if you have enough faith to be able to listen to God, do you not think God maybe is talking to you because you've got a good message to pass on?
I do, because I do a jail ministry on Tuesday nights. Every Tuesday night from 5 to 6, we ministers, and we call ourselves ministers. Most of us are. We go to the county jail here and have Bible study with the inmates there. And one of my goals, or one of the things that I do, is I want to bring a strong message, strong enough to bring them to God, or have them accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And every time I go, that happens. So he has me doing something that I really enjoy, and has a ministry that I'm involved in, that I really enjoy, and I feel like I'm real effective at, and I'm not I'm not an ordained minister. I'm not I don't have the paperwork or anything like that. I just go and share God's word, and it's pretty effective.
No, I would agree. It's just so it's funny how hard it is to get you to talk about that.
It should be. It's not hard for me.
No, because you are clearly an amazing man of faith, and I'm delighted to talk about the books, but there's this really deep, humble man beneath that, who has an extraordinary faith. And I think that's a wonderful message to share to people. And,
Yes, and God gave me a way to share that. Christian people, most Christian people are going to read Christian books.
Yeah.
He said, I have a way for you to read, for you to write a book that's going to get to maybe non-Christians or non-believers that will also get that Christian message. So like I was saying about my pastor and building the Dome Church, a little bit come to him at a time.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what else God is going to reveal to me. I didn't know He was going to ask me to write children's books. I didn't know He was going to ask me to write a historical fiction book around World War II. But it all comes to me. So what's come to me at this point, especially with that book, is that he has a message that he wants to get out to people who don't read.
You need to ask him when the golfing book is coming.
The golfing book?
Yeah. You need to tell him you want to write a golfing book.
Well, it's kind of funny. I have actually 3 manuals on my website that are coming out pretty soon, and one of the manuals is tips on golfing, tips on improving your golf swing that the pros don't want you to know. So I do have a book on golfing that will be coming out, a manual on golfing that will be coming out.
Just before I get to my last question, where can people find you again? What's your website?
It's jjsnovels.com, and on my website you can go directly to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. You can click on the links to order the book from my website, or you can just go to Amazon and type in An American Abduction, and the book is going to pop up. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, and a lot of other stores and platforms out there. They put me out in. The book is available. It's available in hard copy, paperback, ebook, and audio book.
Perfect. And my last question, and this is an extremely random question, and it just requires a little bit of playfulness and some imagination. If you can imagine there's a time machine, you can go back to any place in time, any time in history. Where would you go? Why would you go there? What car would you be driving? Bear with me. What car would you drive? Okay. And what music would you be listening to?
It's funny. I've thought about that a lot, and I've even thought about, would I go, if I had the option, would I go into the future or would I go back in time? And my question was always, actually two. There's two times that I would like to go back to. I'd like to go back to when Jesus walked the earth. Mm. That's the time. So we're talking about around 2,000 years ago. I would have liked to have been on earth when Jesus was walking the earth. That was the first time. And of course the music would have been that music of the time. But the other time that really sort of shaped my life, or I was involved in a lot of things, was the 1970s. That's when the best music was out. That's when I was young.
Some good cars as well, then.
Cars. I still, that's when I got my first car. First girlfriend and all of that. That music is the music I still listen to. So
what would that
the 1970s. And then I'd like to go back and when I was actually looking at my yearbook from high school back then, and it just brought back all kinds of memories. So those are the two times I would want to go back to and just see Jesus work his miracles.
So just shooting it to the 70s, what would you be driving and listening to in the 70s?
Well, in the 70s, I would have been driving probably either the Camaro SS. My sister had the Mustang, and my brother had the Camaro, and he also had the 98, was the Oldsmobile 98. And my brother-in-law had a Chevelle Super Sport. I had an Oldsmobile 442. It would be
you guys
one
had
of those,
some cars, didn't you?
Yeah, it would be one of those, and of course the music of the time: Al Green, The Temptations, Rolling Stones were big then. Even Elton John, I enjoyed a lot of Elton John from back then. The groups from Motown, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Supremes. To me, that was just the best music.
I was listening to some Al Green the other day.
The Jackson 5 before Michael Jackson became Michael Jackson.
But I was listening to some Al Green the other day. It's such a voice. Just even live, just such a voice. Because it's before voices were made in the studio. These guys sung live, and that man,
yes,
it's one of the greatest songs I think that anybody ever sung, because you can feel the pain. Is his "I'm So Tired of Being Alone."
Yes, I actually attended his church. He has a church in Memphis.
Didn't know that.
And I actually attended that church, his church, several years ago. After he stopped singing, he started his own church, and I believe he still has it. I know 10 years ago he had it there in Memphis. And I think it used to be we back then we sort of had our own guys, like a Marvin Gaye. One, my cousin, he was a Marvin Gaye man. Another one would be Al Green. One would be Barry White, and we are, James Brown. We were all like, "No, he's the best. No, he's the best." No, so,
oh man, some great voices in that mix of company. Some great voices. Some just incredible records. Yeah, and that's just an amazing place to stop. James, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much.
And that was James. And as you may have gathered, James is very interested in talking about his book, and I was absolutely fascinated on, as I always am, whenever I hear stories about people who have had a spiritual connection with God, with the Mother Mary, with Jesus, just how it impacts them, how it affects them. And James was just so cool and calm about it all. And I think the reason I'm so fascinated by it at times is because I just don't know what I would do if I thought I'd heard a voice from God. I just, I'd like to think I'd be humble, but I'm not sure I would be. I don't know. I don't know, but it is something that's always very close to my heart, and something I've always been deeply fascinated by. So, as always, like I always say, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate everybody that subscribes and shares the content. It does make a massive difference. So thank you. And wherever you are from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.